Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are on this earth. Today, we're going to talk about confidence in the cloud. We're going to address some of the misconception about cloud computing. We're going to look at the blockers. We're going to look at the facts that are about cloud computing, and really go through what you need to know in order to have confidence in the cloud. My name is Pierre Roman. I'm a technical evangelist from Microsoft Canada. I've been an IT professional for over 25 years. I'm kind of dating myself here, but I've done everything from pulling cables, racking servers, to all the way to management. So I have a really good understanding of the entire IT lifecycle. And with me, I have John Wagle. John?
Hi, Bear. Thanks for inviting me to be here to chat with you. So I'm National Technology Officer here at Microsoft Canada, and I kind of help businesses understand where technology is going so that they can orient themselves towards what that next thing is and to make their business successful. I also help governments understand where the pitfalls might lie. So security, privacy, accessibility, and help them understand that. So I bring over 25 years experience working in security, and much like you, everywhere from bits on the wire protocol development all the way through to legal and policy development.
So for on the legal side, is it you dealing just with the government or government and private industry?
Government and private industry. And so as a technology officer, I can share those experiences that we've had with other customers that have moved to the cloud. And so it's important to note that I'm not a lawyer, and you should always seek compliance advice from your legal counsel. But what we're going to share is some of those things that we've seen helping organizations be successful.
Okay, well, that's perfect. So confidence in the cloud. So, John, what does that mean about confidence in the cloud? What are the things that we need to do? What are the challenges that we're facing?
Well, cloud changes the way that we do our business. And when change happens to an organization and individuals, sometimes there's uncertainty there. Mm-hmm. And people don't get comfortable in making that leap and making that change to the way that they manage IT. And so when I have conversations with our customers, I find that the biggest challenge is cloud is often misunderstood.
Okay.
We as technology people, we often use short forms for things to make life easier for us, and we simply put that brand on there. And really, we found that cloud is a variety of different things. So it started off a few years ago. Here's a newspaper clipping from 2010, and it indicates that businesses feel that cloud is confusing to businesses. Just people didn't understand how it can help them and how it can change the way they do it.
Is it also sometimes maybe a misconception of what cloud versus hosting can be?
Yeah, cloud versus hosting and things like enterprise services, consumer services. We as technology people often get our first exposure to cloud through consumer services. And consumer services are completely different than enterprise services. Mm-hmm. So in 2010, I said to my boss, my mission will be to change that perception, to get people to be confident about the cloud. And well, as you can see here from 2011, cloud computing was still confusing to Canadians. Although a little credit to myself, people think that stormy weather impacts cloud computing.
Yes, no, I don't think the wind over Lake Ontario is going to affect the data center in Washington.
No, it doesn't indeed. And so these are a little bit dated, but we recently did a study here in 2014 where we reached out to C-suites across the marketplace, and we found...
When you say C-suites, you're really meaning like CXOs type of...
Yeah, exactly. Really, it was CEO level that we were talking to. And the reason we talked to CEOs is that over 70% of CEOs to small to medium enterprise make the procurement decision, the purchasing decision for IT. And so those are the people that need convincing that cloud is a meaningful approach to how they deliver their IT services.
Okay.
And when we asked them about cloud services, we found that only 1 in 10 could describe cloud services accurately. And so, this didn't help then where businesses and organizations can gain efficiencies because they just didn't understand that.
1 in 10 is kind of a scary number.
It is indeed, and we don't attribute it to people not understanding what these services are. It's a definitional issue.
Okay.
Right. So if you dive a little bit deeper and you say, "Hey, have you done file sharing on OneDrive?" They go, "Oh yeah, I've done that." Or, "Hey, do you use Outlook.com?" They go, "Oh yeah, I've done that." So they may be using cloud and they don't even realize it.
Well, on the other end, that has been the case for years and years. Even before the whole concept of cloud computing for the enterprise, there were cloud services out there that we were using every other day as consumers that really we weren't really thinking about it as cloud computing.
That's right. And what we found as you start to use those services, you get comfortable using them. And so that's really the first step, is to do that equation around saying, hey, you're using these already and you're relying upon them for some critical use cases.
Yep.
So maybe you're sharing a file between your board or whatnot on those services. And then they start to realize, hey, it's there when I require it and I can be comfortable with it.
Okay. But it's one thing about for us to have using those services, but isn't there any kind of like privacy or security context around that enterprise, like specific to enterprise?
Yes, there is indeed. And you know, privacy and security are critical. When we talk to those senior leaders, it's weighs heavily on their mind. And it doesn't seem like there's a day that goes by that we don't hear about an exploit or a breach or a data spillage someplace. And so that keeps CEOs up at night. And so they're really, really interested in hearing how they can continue to safeguard their information while it's in a cloud context.
Oh, good. So when we say about lack in security and top barriers, I see that the percentage is 45% that don't feel the company would be unsafe. What is it really that they're unsafe or that they're worried about? Is it the legislation? Is it the technology? Is it the way we do things?
You know, I think what happens is they haven't had an opportunity to take a look behind the scenes. They haven't looked at how they do their business and to get a good appreciation of how protected their existing business is, and then to get a sense of the efforts and extent to which enterprise cloud service providers like Microsoft go through to make sure that the cloud solutions and services maintain that security.
So it's kind of like an information or a perception issue.
That's right. And really what we feel is that the C-suite fears the unknown. Right, so they're comfortable with their existing environment. They're comfortable perhaps because there's a lack of exploit. Maybe they haven't been the subject to an attack or a breach, and so they feel confident that they're doing everything right, and they don't want to move from their existing area of comfort. What we found in some cases is that, you know what, the move to the cloud has actually increased assurance, increased security. And it's important for us then to have that conversation with our C-suite around the safeguards, the controls, and the metrics associated with it that can keep our leaders sleeping at night.
Sleeping at night. Yeah, oh, my data's not encrypted at rest. How can I sleep?
That's right.
So we know that like 7 in 10 are afraid that they won't be able to access their information. 8 in 10 believe that there's risk in using the cloud. But in the 3 or 2 people that are actually talking about it, like where or like what are they talking about, or are any of them actually discussing the implementation or the acquisition of cloud services?
You know, those remaining leaders are talking about the acquisition of cloud services because they offer so much opportunity. You know, the characteristics of cloud, which we'll get into in a moment or two, around being able to pay for only what you require, the scalability, the network performance, to transform the way that business operates, are so compelling to those leaders that they feel that that risk assessment, that greater review of what's going on, that second look is important. And so that's really where it comes into, how do we overcome that hurdle, that initial hurdle to start talking about cloud computing? And one of the things that doesn't help us is that many of the C-level executives get their information from consumer sources, right? So there was recently a Hollywood trailer that had people posting a video into the cloud. And then they said, we can't delete the information from the cloud. And for some reason, that stuck because now we see the statistic.
But I remember seeing that trailer in that movie, and it wasn't corporate information.
It definitely wasn't corporate information at all. And what was funny is it's in the cloud. No one understands the cloud, is what they said in that regard. And again, it's funny which things stick with people, but that seems to have stuck. And so we need to really give a little bit of a nudge. And help then the C-level get a better appreciation. And sometimes what it means is speaking about technology in the terms of the CEO's priorities.
So what are the CEO's priorities?
Well, they have a number of priorities, right? First and foremost, it's to grow revenue, which is great for the profit-making organizations. For governments, it's to see those policy outcomes, of course, so you can quickly change the grow revenue to the policy outcomes or be fiscally responsible. Okay. You want to reduce costs. You want to be more efficient, more productive in the way that you operate your business. Again, that helps then grow that revenue. Employees. Employees are more important than ever before. Where there's talent shortages, there's talent gaps, and any C-level that doesn't believe their employees are the most important asset probably should be in a different role. But keeping employees productive, and we've actually seen organizations that have attracted the millennials by providing them cloud-based services.
Yes, because they're in the type of audience or a type of employees that don't do well in a highly structured 9 to 5, use what I give you and nothing else kind of persons.
That's right. They want to have choice in their platform that they use. They want to have choice in their location. They want to have choice in their work hours. And the cloud enables all those great scenarios.
Work from anywhere.
Exactly.
Like you and I.
That's what we do. We often collaborate at Air Canada lounges.
Air Canada lounges, airports, Starbucks, or any coffee shops that is close to the hotel we're at.
That's right. And the cloud lets us do that. So
Absolutely.
that's great news. New products and new services. So the agility that cloud provides, the ability to spin up a service, bring it to market. The faster the company brings a solution to market, the faster you can compete and be successful.
Well, and the element of speed, the element of cost, I understand very well, because as an IT pro is concerned, when you're looking at capacity planning, and if you're planning a service that's looking at, and I'm just spitballing numbers here, like 50,000 transaction a day or 50,000 transaction a week, regardless of the size, whether you're a small, medium, or a large enterprise. If you plan on that, that means you have to source the hardware and the software and the infrastructure to support that. But if for any reason you only handling 10,000 transaction in that period, then you've got the bulk of your investment that's sitting there idle that you're paying for absolutely no reason.
That's right.
And the flip side of that equation is what if you get 100,000 transactions that month? So you get a whole lot of 404 errors or server not found or any kind of browser errors that trying to access that service. But for the improvements and innovation in new products, I know that for Microsoft Azure, I think we've released something like 300 different features / capabilities within Azure over the last 12 months.
It's really changed the cadence of how we deliver software. We used to have 3 to 5 year time horizons, and I mentioned earlier I help organizations look 3 to 5 years out. If you look at the .NET team and their blog around their new release cadence, it's now an 18-month window where they look at what scenarios do we want to fulfill for customers. Then on a 6-month basis, they map those scenarios to feature sets, and they do 3-week sprints in an agile approach to deliver those new features. And so that is now bringing innovation to you and to our customers on a very, very rapid basis. So it allows people to move that quickly. I think on your point around bringing innovation to market, I work with a lot of startups. And when they talk to venture capital, in the past, the VCs would have to spend $200,000, $250,000 for hardware outlay for IT startups. And now they can spend that $200,000 on the idea, and they can simply use the cloud services as they require them, on demand, as they build their following.
And it's great for growth revenues and reducing costs because they don't have to pay for an infrastructure that won't be needed for the next 6 months.
That's exactly it. That's exactly
fantastic.
it. And the last thing that keeps them up at night, security and compliance, right? The regulations, the financial services, and all those things, making sure that they're dotting all the I's and crossing the T's, that keeps them up at night.
Yes. So the cloud, so it's been around for a while. If I was going to talk to somebody about the cloud that really is either not interested or not initiated is the word I was really looking for, how would you kind of start presenting that?
Well, that's a great question, and the way that I present it, and I didn't come up with this, it's come up through others, is equating cloud to using computing as we make use of electricity. And so when you think about it, you get up and in the morning and you use electricity, you simply plug into the wall. You don't consider,
so it's a commodity.
It's a commodity. You don't consider where it came from. You don't consider how it was generated, be it water-powered, solar-powered, wind-powered, because we want to have the green power.
That's
but
right.
You don't consider that. You use as much as you require.
Or as much as you can afford.
Exactly. You only it's available on demand, and you only pay for what you've used, right? And so cloud computing offers you that same model for computing as you do for electricity. Now, the reason I have this photo here, it's from the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, and it shows Nikolai Tesla and Thomas Edison comparing kind of the AC and the DC power. Of
Tesla,
the time.
I know that name.
Well, so he was a big proponent of DC power and was trying to get people to switch to that way of distributing electricity.
Okay.
But if we think about for a moment, back in that day, what was the killer app for electricity?
Eating?
Heating? Well, it's close, but it was street lighting.
Okay.
So the idea was that they were going to light up the streets of America. Now, think about your day today. What did you use electricity? What innovations came because people could have easy and rapid access to electricity? You have refrigeration. You have healthcare. You have communications. This technology is all based upon electricity being readily available on consumption basis in a cloud-type model.
So we want to do that with cloud.
We want to do that with cloud, and we really see us at the early days of this really explosive innovation. When you look at things like big data and machine learning, going to give us a whole new perspective on our world.
Yes. But the cloud, we've already said 300 new features and capabilities. You've talked about all these different capabilities that we have to scale and to reduce cost. Is there like a killer app or a killer portion of it? Like, how do you, like, what is it? Like, what is cloud?
Well, that depends. And because cloud can mean so many things,
Yep.
You mentioned 300 new features in Azure. I think we're up in over 60 different online services in Windows Azure.
Okay.
So that includes things like media streaming and blob storage and great capabilities like that. And so one of the ways we can really deflate some of the concerns around cloud is to help our senior executives and people that we work with appreciate that cloud is really a variety of tools. I've put up this photo of the Swiss Army knife.
So Azure is the Swiss Army knife of cloud computing.
It is indeed. And you use the portion for best suited for the job. And so you'll use the scissors when you want to cut, let's say, paper or a string. If you want to whittle something, you use the blade. And you use the right tool for the right job. And when you pick the right tool, then all of a sudden some of this noise of uncertainty and doubt disappears. So this idea of not being able to delete any content from the web. As you start to look at the services, like media streaming services, you realize that, hey, the data is always under your control. You're able to define how it goes out in the web, where it goes to. So you have a great deal of flexibility.
And control, I talk to IT professionals and I talk to students in the IT programs, and that's something that always comes back as to what's the definition of IT. An IT organization is there to allow their business units or their main units to achieve their goals while retaining control. So that control in Azure, in Microsoft Azure, is great because the administrators of the subscription can actually define what that control is.
Right.
So,
no,
it's a Swiss Army knife, but there's enough control in it that you're not going to stab yourself with it.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And you can put the tools away when you don't require them anymore. Or if you need other tools, you can grab those as well. So maybe that axe that you have in your garage, you can continue to use that to hack down that tree when required and then take off the smaller branches with your cloud as well.
So the axe in the garage and the Swiss Army knife in the cloud. So that's really the definition of hybrid cloud.
Well, indeed. And there's so many different ways that you can deploy cloud services, from the public cloud to on-premise, hybrid, or through a cloud OS partner, and have somebody else within your country deploy the cloud services. So there's a great variety of different ways that you can make use of cloud services. Don't let anybody tell you that it's only one way and one particular approach.
So you can use both ends of the Swiss Army knife at the same time and no problem.
Exactly.
All right, so this is the end of our first module. In the next module, we're going to talk about definition and classification of cloud computing, patterns and models, and more importantly, which is probably what a lot of people were interested in, is the myths and misunderstanding of what cloud computing is.
And they still abound, those myths that are out there.
Absolutely.